Right, I found it. So on the Unscientific America website, where I went to, the book is called A Polemic, and that, to me, begs the question, what are you disputing and why?
Well, it's really a kind of call to arms to diagnose a lot of the reasons that there's a disconnect between science and culture. So I wouldn't say we're so much attacking each issue as much as taking them on, dissecting them, and figure out where the disconnect exists and what we can do about it.
Why was that important, though, to do it that way?
Well, if you, I'll tell you this.
I think it's important to get a lot of this out there in ways that are going to get people to talk about it and to both think about the solutions in the book and be provoked to create some of their own ideas or talk about it more amongst their groups and think about how relevant science seems to their lives and why it matters a lot more than we hear about in the media or in policy sometimes. Bring it into culture.
How did you mentioned that you blog with Chris, but how did you get into this, into blogging about it, and what is, you're a co-author, what is your particular contribution to the book?
The way we wrote the book is we each started with certain chapters. I mean, for me, it was clear that I needed to write about science education because that was my background. I started some of the other chapters. He started some of the chapters. I mean, clearly he was more familiar with the political argument, having written a whole book about that. And then we ended up switching back and forth over and over and over. And at this point, I don't even know where his words end and mine begin. It's very much a work that I think we share a voice. And we're so used to writing together and working together and speaking together with a common theme that it was kind of a natural progression for us to do this book.
And you mentioned that in the presentation. The book addresses several chapters or issues or areas, but the one that has been probably the most controversial is the one about religion, science versus religion. Why do you think that has been so controversial, especially on the blogosphere? Is that to you? Is that discussion important, or is it more a tempest in a teapot?
Well, I think it it is something that's being buzzed about on the blogs, but it's also being buzzed about from a particular group that happens to be very vocal on blogs. So I don't know that that's really representative of sort of the general perspective on the topic. I think when people are polled over and over, you hear that people are interested in science, that they want to be involved in science, and then an overwhelming majority of different people have some kind of a religious affiliation, whether it's sort of their own kind of faith or whether they're part of an organized practicing church or temple or what have you. So I think it's reconciliation might not be the right word, but engagement is, because if we want to come to some common solutions, then everyone really has to be part of the conversation. And to alienate either party, whether it's an extremely strong religious fundamental group, or if it's an extremely new atheist kind of militant approach to we want nothing to do with religion, it doesn't work. We need as many allies as we can get in the science community.
What's the message that the central message that you want people to take away from the book?
If I could, I would like people to continue thinking about the ideas presented in the book. I mean, we go through science in the media, science in entertainment, science in religion, science in politics, and talk about solutions, how to get more engaged public, and also how to get, we put the blame on everyone, and particularly on scientists, that it's our responsibility to know how to explain why what we do matters and how we can get there. So I really hope this book promotes dialogue and encourages some other people to get involved.
What do you think of the idea that you shouldn't just do this in bookstores, but you should do it in churches?
I think we should engage every community. I work at Duke, and the group that I used to work with, the Nicholas Institute, we work in science policy. We work on the Hill quite a bit, but we also work with religious groups because, in the end, we share a common purpose. We want, or I hope most of us share a common purpose, but we want, a healthy, clean, safe environment for, all sorts of different animals and biodiversity. And whether you feel that way because of your faith or whether you feel that way because you're a compassionate person who just cares about these issues, you're after the same thing.